When we look at Bobby Lashley and his first run within the WWE, it can be said that his first run with the company was not that successful. Although he had won the ECW Championship twice and the United States Championship once during this first stint, we possibly can agree that he wasn't as over in the ring than he is today. I will admit, I did enjoy watching Bobby during his first run in the WWE, but keep in mind, this was at a time when I myself just got into wrestling, so I didn't know the full ins and outs of a wrestler's in-ring abilities. But now, as I'm much older and have a more clearer picture of how things go inside the ropes, I decided for today's video to look back at Bobby Lashley's first stint in the WWE from 2005 to 2007. Lashley debuted with World Wrestling Entertainment in 2005, and he would go on to Ohio Valley Wrestling, WWE's training and development promotion first. There he would compete under the name Blaster Lashley. He would then go by his first name Bobby just 1 month prior to his main roster debut. Lashley would make his debut on the September 23rd, 2005 edition of SmackDown in a match against Simon Dean. Regarding his debut, I thought he was fine. Throughout the match, Lashley was really showing his superior strength on Simon Dean at every opportunity. Bobby won the match. It was just under 3 minutes, which is always a good move for brand new stars competing in short matches. Obviously, he was still lacking in experience here, I do agree, but hey, we all have to start somewhere. This match would lead to Lashley making his first pay-per-view appearance at No Mercy, where he faced Simon Dean once again. In the match, Simon said, he gave the added stipulation that if he didn't beat Bobby Lashley, he would eat all the cheeseburgers that he had brought to the ring. Lashley of course won here in under 2 minutes, but the one bit in the match that sprung to mind was when he lifted Simon Dean up to get him into the Dominator position, but he messed it up when he dropped Simon Dean to the ring mat. So yeah, it can be agreed that he was definitely lacking experience in the ring during his first month on the main roster. Lashley would go on an undefeated streak during his first few months on the SmackDown brand, beating numerous competitors along the way. His next main attention was when he became part of Team SmackDown at the 2005 Survivor Series in the main event against Team Raw. Lashley defeated Orlando Jordan to qualify for the team, and in the Survivor Series match, Lashley was dominant during his time in the match, like when he stopped Chris Masters applying the Master Lock on him. Unfortunately, Bobby would be the first man to get eliminated from the match when he was eliminated by Shawn Michaels after Lashley got chokeslammed by Kane. However, Team SmackDown would eventually win the match at Survivor Series. Heading into 2006, Bobby was the first man on SmackDown to qualify for the Royal Rumble. He would enter the match from number 8, and again he was dominant during his time in it until he was eliminated by Kane and The Big Show. After this, Lashley would enter a feud with John Bradshaw Layfield, which then led to his next pay-per-view match at No Way Out. It was here that his undefeated streak came to an end after interference from Finlay, and this led to a rivalry between the two that went throughout February and March. Following 2 matches between the pair that ended in no contests, Finlay would end up beating Bobby Lashley in a lumberjack match where the winner qualified for the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 22. But it wasn't doom and gloom for Lashley after all, as on the March 24th edition of SmackDown, Lashley would win a Battle Royal to earn the final spot in the ladder match at WrestleMania. At WrestleMania 22, Lashley competed in the ladder match alongside Finlay, Matt Hardy, Rob Van Dam, Shelton Benjamin and Nature Boy Ric Flair. Lashley, whenever he tried to climb, seemed anxious during his ascent up the ladder. There was a cool spot in the match when Lashley ended up getting triple powerbombed off the ladder, but eventually Rob Van Dam won the briefcase in a match that's worth checking out. Once WrestleMania was done, Lashley's next angle involved his participation in the revived King of the Ring tournament. He was victorious in the quarterfinals when he defeated Mark Henry via a countout, and he would meet Finlay once again in the semi-finals and again came out victorious. This led him to the finals at the 2006 Judgment Day pay-per-view against Booker T. At the pay-per-view, Lashley, I have to agree, did show signs of shortcomings throughout the bout, but Booker T, the veteran, was able to help guide Lashley through the match, and in the end it was a decent enough final bout, all things considered. In the end, Lashley came up short in this final following interference from Finlay again, and Booker T won the tournament. But after the match, when Booker went to sit on the throne that was on the stage, Lashley proceeded to spear Booker right out of his boots. On the SmackDown following Judgment Day, World Champion Rey Mysterio got to choose an opponent for United States Champion John Bradshaw Layfield. Rey ended up choosing Bobby Lashley as Layfield's opponent, and this led to Lashley winning the United States Championship from JBL. Following his Judgment Day loss and US title win, Lashley entered a feud with Booker T, now known as King Booker, and his court, which had Finlay and William Regal included as well, and they would feud for a period of time. Dave Bautista would also play a part of the feud as well, where he and Lashley would team on numerous occasions against King Booker's court. During his title reign, he only defended the United States title once, that being on the June 30th episode of SmackDown, where he faced King Booker in a steel cage match that was actually a really entertaining bout. However, 2 weeks later, on July 14th, Finlay would defeat Lashley to win the United States title after using his trusty shillelagh to win. At the Great American Bash pay-per-view, Lashley was booked into a triple threat match for the United States title against Finlay and William Regal. However, Lashley was declared that he couldn't compete in the ring for a short period of time due to elevated enzymes in his liver. And although he made an appearance at the pay-per-view all dressed to compete, he did not take part in the United States title match. Once he was able to get back in the ring, he resumed his feud with King Booker's court up until the No Mercy pay-per-view, where he was to challenge King Booker for the World Heavyweight Championship. The match would get changed to a Fatal 4-Way bout with Finlay and Bautista added to it. The Fatal 4-Way match at No Mercy was also yet another good and decent outing. Lashley was very good in it as well, but King Booker retained the title at the event. On the November 14th 2006 episode of ECW on Sci-Fi, Lashley made his debut for the roster, where he ambushed Hardcore Holly backstage whilst Holly was on his way to the ring. Lashley then speared the Big Show before he entered the ring, where he signed a contract for the final spot in the Extreme Elimination Chamber match at the December to Dismember pay-per-view. Before getting to the Elimination Chamber match, Lashley ended up being part of Team Cena at the 2006 Survivor Series against Big Show's team. This match is also yet another good one to watch for those who haven't. Lashley, along with John Cena, were the sole survivors of the match here. So we now come to the December to Dismember pay-per-view, an event that has been heavily panned by fans and critics alike, and nothing good came of the Chamber match. Unfortunately, Lashley was a victim of bad booking on this night. Around the time Lashley had debuted on ECW, the fans were all behind CM Punk, and it was clear they wanted him to win the title at the pay-per-view. It's been said that Paul Heyman, along with The Big Show, wanted Punk to win the title at the event and get him over. But no, Vince McMahon, who of course doesn't like to put over guys who fans have rallied behind big time, dismissed Heyman's idea and stuck with his choice of Lashley winning instead, something that fans were not enthusiastic about. The match was indeed underwhelming thanks to all the bad booking and the bad decisions combined. The featured weapons in the bout were not utilised well enough, and an advertised Sabu ended up being removed from the match, which was a bad move, as I felt Sabu could have worked wonders inside the chamber. Anyhow, Lashley would win the match and the ECW title after he last eliminated The Big Show, and sadly the fans were not pleased with the outcome. Absolutely the weakest Elimination Chamber match the WWE has ever given us. Following the title win, Lashley defended the belt against a number of challengers, including the likes of Rob Van Dam and Test. The latter ended up challenging Lashley for the title at the 2007 Royal Rumble, where Lashley won the belt via countout after Test walked away from the match. Really strange booking decision there. After The Undertaker chose his choice of who he wanted to face at WrestleMania 23, Lashley would then get involved in the angle that I'm pretty sure most of us would think of the most when looking at Lashley's first run in the WWE. Mr. McMahon and Donald Trump agreed to pick a wrestler to represent them in a match at Mania 23, held in Detroit, Michigan, where the loser would get their head shaved. Bobby Lashley would get nominated to represent Trump, whilst Intercontinental Champion Umaga would represent McMahon. Once Lashley was chosen to represent Trump, McMahon made Lashley's path to WrestleMania very difficult. He had him compete against a variety of competitors with several match stipulations, including a steel cage match against Hardcore Holly, where in that bout, Lashley basically threw himself through the cage wall and onto Umaga, who was at ringside. Lashley, however, was dominant throughout his road to WrestleMania, but on the Raw before Mania, Lashley lost a no disqualification match to Mr. McMahon thanks to Umaga. At Mania 23, Lashley and Umaga did battle for their respective Billionaire. Stone Cold Steve Austin was the guest referee in this one. The match was alright on the whole. It wasn't the best bout on the card, but it did have some good spots throughout. But in the end, Lashley picked up the win, and he, Donald Trump and Steve Austin all worked together to give McMahon a good old trim. This head shaving would intensify Bobby Lashley's feud with Mr. McMahon. On an episode of Raw following Mania, Lashley would get ambushed by Umaga and Shane McMahon, with Vinnie Mac coming down to inform him that he was to defend the ECW title against himself, Shane O'Mac and Umaga in a handicap match at the Backlash pay-per-view. But before we get there, Lashley would end up costing Umaga the Intercontinental title on an episode of Raw which was held in Italy, where the Samoan Bulldozer lost the belt to a fan who was picked from the audience to compete. This of course would end up being the entertaining Santino Marella. At Backlash, Lashley was outnumbered here and he would lose the title when Mr. McMahon tagged himself in and pinned Lashley to win the belt. And in this bout, Lashley suffered a legit injury where he damaged a rotator cuff in his shoulder, but he didn't need to require surgery for it. Mr. McMahon granted Bobby Lashley a handicap rematch for the title at the Judgment Day pay-per-view. At the event, Lashley won the match in quick succession when he pinned Shane McMahon, but due to that, Mr. McMahon told Lashley that although he did win the match, he did not win the ECW title as he didn't pin Vince himself. But the feud would come to an end at One Night Stand, where Lashley would face Mr. McMahon one more time with the title on the line, and it was in a street fight. In this match, Umaga and Shane McMahon of course got involved a lot. The beginning of the match saw Lashley leap over the top rope and onto Umaga, but the landing looked a little awkward, so nice start to the match there. But in the end, despite portions of interference, Lashley would spear McMahon to reclaim the ECW championship, and the rivalry with McMahon ended there. About 1 week later, the draft lottery took place. At the event, Lashley would get drafted to the Raw brand, and due to this, he had to surrender the ECW World title, ending this reign at just 8 days. Lashley would immediately enter the WWE title picture upon joining the Red brand. At the Vengeance pay-per-view, he took part in a fatal 5-way match for the WWE Championship alongside King Booker, Mick Foley, Randy Orton and champion John Cena. The match here with all these big names wasn't too bad, but my main criticism for this one that it was only around 10 minutes long, which was sort of like a close your eyes and you will miss it feel. In this bout, Lashley of course didn't win the belt, as John Cena pinned Mick Foley to retain the title. On the July 2nd, 2007 edition of Raw, Lashley was part of a Beat the Clock challenge where the winner would face John Cena for the WWE Championship at the Great American Bash. Lashley won the challenge overall after he beat Shelton Benjamin to set the fastest time. At the Great American Bash, Lashley had probably, in my opinion, his best match of this run, where he faced John Cena for the belt at the pay-per-view. Lashley, however, came up short again in this one when Cena hit an attitude adjustment from the middle rope, which at the time I thought looked cool. The two men shook hands after the match. Bobby Lashley's final match came on the July 30th, 2007 edition of Raw, where he faced Mr. Kennedy. During the bout, Kennedy kicked Lashley's shoulder into the ring steps, which injured him. Eventually, Kennedy won the match, and the injury to Lashley's shoulder was done to write him off TV screen so that he could receive surgery for a legitimate injury that he was suffering from. And in February of 2008, the WWE announced that Bobby Lashley was released from his contract. and that was a look back at Bobby Lashley's first stint in the WWE. While during this tenure I did enjoy a portion of his matches, but in hindsight, yeah, this run was a bit weaker. I think it was around WrestleMania 23 or even after that, Lashley had enhanced his craft in the ring. Again, that's not to say that prior to Mania 23 everything he did before was underwhelming, because it definitely wasn't, at least not to me. After Lashley got released, he would work overseas in Japan, Puerto Rico and Mexico, and eventually found his way to TNA Impact. And finally, in 2018, Bobby Lashley returned to WWE and would go on to have a more successful run within the company. And that's all from me today. Thank you as always everyone for watching, and bye for now.